I wanted to talk about Donald Trump's third term, which is something that we might have to get used to saying a lot more, either in preparation for a third campaign, in discussion about the possibility of a third campaign, or if our country has sinned in irrefragable ways, in ways that we can never attain for in the eyes of God, in actuality. So currently, the Constitution says that a president can only serve for 2 terms. For 2 terms. There's no, you can have 2 terms, but if you can have another one if it's non-consecutive. There's no, you can have an endless amount of terms. We have this in order to stop somebody from getting the gears of power at the top and holding on to it for too long. That's why we have term limits for the highest office in the land. And it's also has produced a culture where people actually think about term limits for other offices, where in American politics, the problem isn't, hey guys, I hate that presidential term limit. I love our political elite so much. I wish I had more opportunities to vote for the same guys. That's not something I hear very often. I don't hear that very often. And so while you could say that a term limit is inherently undemocratic from the fact that you're telling voters who they can and cannot vote for. I mean, if you liked an ice cream 2 days, you might like them the third. I think it is it can be, depending on your system, an important check on power, especially if that office has a tendency to attract people who would like to hoard. And Donald Trump, I would say, is one of those types of people. So, since FDR, the last president to have more than 2 terms, this norm has been stapled into our way of life when it comes to the executive office, that we know that after the second term that the president's done. And this is actually utilized by it also has some uses. When a president knows that they can't run again, they can take certain actions, though unpopular, that they deem worthy for the country. Like, there are certain things that they can do when America said, we trust your judgment. And you might say, and the president might say in response, well, we don't judge the public judgment on this electorally, so I'm going to wait until the end of my second term to make a move on this, knowing that it'll be unpopular, but it's necessary for the country. Either way, there's some uses for the term limit. There is not only institutionally, but even some rare instances where it could give them some maneuverability like that. And it is 100% stapled into the Constitution. There are people, though, who do not care. There are people who want to get rid of that part of the Constitution, or they want to ignore it altogether because they are in such support of Donald Trump being chief executive, being the top of this party, continuing, in this case for Steve Bannon, who we're going to listen to in a moment, and continuing this shift in his direction of politics that Donald Trump has brought to the Republican Party. And so Steve Bannon and some others are floating the idea of Donald Trump running again, and Donald Trump has entertained it through aesthetics, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first, Steve Bannon explains why he wants Donald Trump in for a third term. And he uses, of course, divine providence. It's always good to talk about somebody who's not in the room with you right now. God.
A curd is a curd.
I am near positive Trump will run for a third term. I am also nearly positive he will begin doing that 45 minutes after he isn't president.
Thank you so much for the $20. Do you mean Donald Trump sitting out 2028 and running in 2032 at the age of fucking a million? That's an idea, but God, it's a scary idea. But I think it would have to be consecutive. If there's any chance for Donald Trump serving one more term in office, it would have to be consecutive. There's no chance otherwise. I just don't see Trump lasting another. I mean, that would mean 11 years from now, he would be leaving office. I just don't see it. I don't think Trump age 90. Trump's going to become our Robert Mugabe? I don't think so.
Well, he's going to get a third term. So Trump 28, Trump is going to be president in 28. And people just ought to get accommodated with that.
So what about the 22nd Amendment?
There's many different alternatives. At the appropriate time, we'll lay out what the plan is. But there's a plan.
No, there isn't. No, there isn't. It says clearly, 22nd Amendment, president cannot be in charge for more than 2 terms. Boom, done. End of paragraph. Well, there's other options. There's other ideas about it. No, there isn't. If the law says thou shalt not murder, you can't be, oh no, there's maneuverabilities. We can find ways around that. No, you can't. Pretty ironclad, pretty set in stone, pretty clear in text. Period, end of paragraph, end of sentence, end of book. Give it an award, put it on the shelf, let it get dusty. We don't have to open it because it's so clear cut, but apparently we do. Oh, well, we'll reveal our plans in time. Not ominous at all. We'll reveal our plans in due time.
Plan, and President Trump will be the president in 28. We had longer odds in 16 and longer odds in 24 than we got in 28. And President Trump will be the president of the United States, and the country needs him to be president of the United States. We have to finish what we started. And the way we finish it through Trump is a vehicle. I know this will drive you guys crazy, but he's a vehicle of divine providence. He's an instrument. He's very imperfect. He's not churchy, not particularly religious.
I mean, yeah, he knocked up, he knocked up his wife and then decided that while she was pregnant with Barron, he was going to go bang a porn star and then pay her off to be quiet about it. It's not particularly classy. No, I would not say so. I would say he does not have the most upstanding moral character. No, I don't. Either when it comes to that type of personal conduct, the people that he is, associated with, helped and worked with, like Roy Cohn, or just his business practices and stiffing workers. I don't think Jesus would have stiffed workers.
But he's an instrument of divine will, and you can tell this of how he's pulled this off. We
Jesus
need
comes
him
out and say,
for at least one more term, right?
Too.
And he'll get that in 28.
You're not driving me crazy. I'm trying to understand the coherence of the things you've just told me in the last few minutes. On the one hand, you've said the Constitution is fit for purpose. Secondly, you've said that President Trump needs another term, even though the 22nd Amendment makes pretty clear that he cannot have another term.
Why does it make that clear?
Because he's on his second term already.
At some point in time, we will make sure we go through, Zanny, and define all those terms.
But even if you find a way to undermine you will be undermining the spirit of that amendment, even if you find some way around it. And to those
Can the American people, if the American people, with the mechanisms that we have, put Trump back in office, are the American people tearing up the Constitution? Would that be tearing up?
Well,
would the American people be going against the spirit of the Constitution, ma'am?
I think yes, actually, because I think what you will end up with is a populist justification for a quasi-dictatorship.
That's not true at all.
That's what it sounds like.
Trump is a dictatorship. Did you just see the compromises he had to make on the big, beautiful bill? You see the compromises he has to do on everything, on accommodating Zelensky, on what President Trump. President Trump is nothing but a series of negotiations to kind of keep this thing rolling forward, where he's having trade-offs all the time.
Steve, you've just spent the last 20 minutes telling me we have to smash the other side. There's no room for debate. There's no room for compromise. We must smash them. And now you're telling me this is a negotiation. I mean, that's
no. On his
policy.
First off, the only way President Trump wins in 2028 and continues to stay in office is by the will of the American people, okay? And the will of the American people is what the Constitution embodies. And so I think we're going to be in good hands there. We need to finish what we started. And President Trump is the instrument, a providential instrument to finish this job.
A religious mumbo jumbo there. Well, third term because God said so. Religious providence. If Donald Trump is a device by which God, influences the earth, why couldn't it just be any other Joe Schmo? If God wanted to influence the earth, Couldn't it just be the next person he gets in there? So God has the power to control Donald Trump in this way to meet his own ends, but he
A
doesn't have
curd
the
is a
power
curd.
to help somebody who's
Jesus
about to
actually
win.
screwed thousands of high-rise builders. It was kind of his kink.
Yeah, Jesus kept stiffing the salaries of the followers. You know, he did not he went out on his carpentry school payments. Look, the divine providence, the religious mumbo jumbo, that type of stuff is scary, obviously, because people put a lot of weight into that. Though there's not much you can really, you can't grasp it, you can't manifest it, you can't touch it. You know, this isn't something that you roll through your fingers. This type of delusion, but it's stuff that people believe so much in their heart that it becomes real for them. That Trump is sent by God. So again, if Trump is a device by God, why couldn't it also be the next president or the president after that? So God has the power to do this for Trump, but he doesn't have the power to just move on to the next president. You know, it just doesn't make much sense to me. But the other thing that was strange to me is her bringing up the fact that, oh, it could mean dictatorship. There are many, the easier defense for Steve Bannon, the easier defense would have been they don't have term limits in Germany. They don't have term limits, and that's a country that has been so traumatized by dictatorship, and they've put many institutions in place. They don't have term limits there. They don't have term limits in this country. They don't have term limits in that country. If the population votes and keeps voting for that people, these people keep doing it, and those people keep winning. Why can't we do that here? Now, that is ignoring what the Constitution says. That's ignoring American public consensus, which is in favor of more term limits for a wider area of offices, not less. Not less. And instead, he decides to pivot to, well, no, we're not going to talk about, you know, the problems with the restrictions we put on who Americans can choose for office. I'm going to talk about the fact he's not a dictator because he said he accommodated Zelensky. What is accommodate? The sanctions on Russia is, he said he was going to bring war to a close because World War III, and then went there and then did a terrible job after 10 months. Did a terrible job. In 24 hours, he achieved nothing, and in 10 months so far, he's achieved nothing. So accommodate Zelensky how? By implementing sanctions that shows he's not a dictator, by reacting to the world around you and changing as the information changes. In Russia's case, it wasn't much of an information change, but let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Just entertain me for this scenario. That means he's not a dictator? What a piss poor defense. Steve Bannon's war room, I gotta wonder, is he the best you have? There must be better on that side than Steve Bannon's war room. There must be better, because there's other avenues to defend this take that are going to be easier for Americans to understand, more convincing for Americans, and has a discernible history in other largely liberal states that you could point to if you wanted Trump to just keep staying president and you wanted to be a Robert Mugabe type figure, while not bringing a ton of, like, I guess, discernment or anger or vitriol to yourself, that people are like, oh, you're trying to bring dictatorship to the country. You would have an area of cover. But instead he chooses to just say, well, he compromised once. Not much of a compromise, the examples he used, but he compromised once. That means he's not a dictator. The fact that he had to negotiate in the big, beautiful bill, the existence of negotiations, shows that he's not a dictator. There was negotiations within the power structures that be in dictatorships. I think dictatorships does not mean you have every and all powers. I think it means that you have certain powers over the institutions in the country that is undue and you should not have. You don't have to have all power to be a dictator. I mean, a lot of dictatorships were supported by diverse coalitions, like in Francisco Franco's Spain. Like, whether you talk about the fascistas or the church. Now, this question was also asked to sitting politicians, though. Tommy Tuberville who replaced Doug Jones in the Senate, Democrat Doug Jones, he was asked about whether or not Donald Trump should have a third term since it's not in the Constitution. And he says, but, which is, I think, is an indication of his inability to say no here, and his inability to, in this instance, stand on 10 toes in front of the Constitution.
Senator, is it constitutional for President Trump to run for a third term? He's teasing that.
You know, if you read the Constitution, it says it's not. But if he says he has some different circumstances that might be able to go around the Constitution, but that's up to him. We got a long way to go.
But you're open to it.
There's some other circumstance. Could you imagine that from President Barack Obama? Well, Obama says he wants to do a third and fourth term, and the Constitution says no, but he says this is some other circumstances. He has other things that don't worry about it. We'll get to it later. No, Tommy Tuberville would be warning about the dictatorship that is threatening America from the steps of the White House 3 years out from the election. The language you would hear on the Daily Wire from Ben Shapiro, from Outwash, from all these people would be of fire and brimstone politically. Fire and brimstone. But instead, I don't worry about it. 3 years out, and it is the unconstitutional apparently, but he says he has something. He hasn't revealed it. Steve Bannon hasn't revealed it when he talked about it, and it seems Tommy Tuberville, seems the senators don't know what it is. So I'm curious to know what the secret, like, jutsu or move or whatever it is that they want to use in order to say that a pretty clear, well-defined section of the Constitution does not matter. Would it really be J.D. Vance runs for president, then resigns, and then Donald Trump takes over? Oh, my God.
Well, I think that there's going to have to be an evaluation from President Trump's viewpoint to the Constitution. There will be a lot of legal aspects to it. Will it happen? It's very unlikely, but don't ever close the book on President Trump.
Seems almost excited about it. Mike Johnson, though, while he didn't want to rub anybody's nose in it, and he called it trolling the Democrats. Mind you, this is the thing they didn't say earlier. Donald Trump is selling 2028 hats on his merch store right now. Trump 2028 hats. Could that just be another hustle for him to say, hey, I know my audience likes triggering people or likes to wear stuff that'll throw liberals wild. So here's a thing that'll throw liberals wild. Please give me money. Is that a possibility? Absolutely. This is Donald Trump, and he's a child of the game. He's a student of the game. But it also could be a pretty clear indication that he is interested, and possibly a way for him to test the waters. So Mike Johnson's response here, whether or not he calls it trolling, is important.
Well, there is the 22nd Amendment. I spoke with the president about an hour ago. It's late in the evening in Japan. He's working around the clock, serving the American people. He doesn't stop. Talk about someone who works around the clock. And as Chairman Pfluger mentioned a moment ago, and as we've reiterated in here so many times, you're looking at the split screen because under President Trump, the Republican Party has delivered. I mean, you're talking about reducing taxes, reducing regulations, cutting fraud, waste, and abuse, ended the border crisis, ending the crime crisis, resolving conflicts, wars around the globe, and working on these amazing trade agreements. It's been a great run. But I think the president knows, and he and I have talked about the constrictions of the Constitution, as much as so many of the American people lament that. The Trump 2028 cap is one of the most popular that's ever been produced, and he has a good time with that, trolling the Democrats whose hair is on fire about the very prospect. But I do believe that we've got 3 extraordinary years ahead of us, and the 2 years of the Trump administration are going to be an incredible thing. And I don't see a way to amend the Constitution because it takes about 10 years to do that, as you all know, to allow all the states to ratify what 2/3 of the House and 3/4 of the states would approve. So I don't see the path for that, but I can tell you that we are not going to take our foot off the gas pedal. We're going to deliver for the American people, and we've got a great run ahead of us. We'll have 4 strong years.
Look, when you got someone like Steve Bannon talking about it seriously, this is somebody that's in Trump's orbit. This is somebody who was working for Trump during the first term. When you have other people like Tommy Tuberville not ruling it out, when you have the Trump administration throwing hints out there, I mean, having a serious response to it is good. A serious no. Mind you, also, Mike Johnson didn't say, well, he said he has a secret method. He just treated it like it was a joke. Don't worry about it. Because he knows if he had tried to, it would probably, if there was any legalistic actions taken to do it, it would probably end up being his problem. He seemed to write it off as like not a real possibility, and as just a troll. But I'm not so sure. Really not. Really not. Hey, y'all. Stay safe, Dylan. Why, thank you. Why, thank you.